Is it called the Kvetch cast?
Kvetch.
Kvetch?
That's a working title.
Okay.
Kvetch cat. You know what kvetching?
Like the Jewish Hebrew phrase for bitching.
Yeah. I guess bitching is kvetching, bitching. Yeah, it's like this app, I wanted to make it maybe called Kvetch, but I don't know if people can say it.
In this climate, this anti-Semitic world we're in right now.
Kanye would never listen. I feel like complaining is very important.
Yeah.
An important part of society. It feels good. Like, people need to have their release. People need to just throw their hatred into the world.
It's therapeutic.
Yeah, it's therapeutic. It's the whole primal scream thing.
Yeah.
We're like, I wanted to primal scream today.
You didn't do it?
No, but I wanted to. But I think even more importantly is you can find where the problems are in life, in whatever it is you're complaining about. Like that, your complaint is an indication of something that could be better. Mm-hmm. And it's almost the only way to get better. If something is bad and nobody says anything, then nothing happens. It just stays that way unless someone just fixes it without complaining. But I guess that's the more effective version, but
not as common.
Yeah. Most people just prefer to complain and not fix anything, because people suck at complaining. They like have these generic complaints where they don't actually know what the problem is. They just complain about, I hate so-and-so, without actually saying like why, like a lot of people say I hate, there are plenty of people who people hate. Right. And they just hate them in general, which is not helpful. Not only that, but they feel like entitled to their way, right?
To their emotion that they feel.
Well, I think you're entitled to your emotion, but I feel like people feel entitled to the change that they're complaining about. Like they feel entitled to, if they're complaining about the way that something in, let's say, the government is run, they feel entitled that it will change. Like they feel entitled to have whatever they want just happen.
Sure.
And they don't even make suggestions on how to like make it better. They just complain, right? Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, I guess that's somewhat therapeutic too, which is nice. But I feel like the
point, like the reason they're, well, I mean, to me, it's about what the end goal is.
Yeah.
And you mentioned problem solving, like pointing out a problem. It might be a reason that you would do that. It helps motivate people to do that. And you mentioned it's therapeutic, it's stress relief and all that. But I think another reason that people do it that maybe you might be missing is that it's like a shared connection. It's a validation. It's something that you're just saying, this sucks. I don't have the energy or the ability or the skills to fix this, but I'm complaining about this. And if you also complain about it, then you kind of feel that connection with that person. And that's it. You're just making a human interaction.
It's the beauty of kvetching.
Right.
I think the definition of kvetching involves other people. I don't actually know, but I think in my head, to kvetch is like complaining with someone else. Like you're sort of complaining together.
It's a communal activity.
Yeah, exactly. The connection, I think you're exactly right. The connection with other people who have the same idea, the same complaint is important.
But in those cases, a lot of times they're not giving you solutions. They're not offering anything constructive because that's not the point.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to understand in the circumstance why they're complaining. And sometimes they might not even know. I do this all the time. And as a married man, I think, it's very common that you hear your wife complain about something. You're okay, let's fix this. But a big chunk of the time is just to get it out. It's just therapeutic release. It's just to point out, hey, this is something that's bothering me. I'm feeling these emotions. And they just want that connection to say, I understand, I empathize. And you don't have to immediately go to problem solving mode because that's not their goal. Maybe eventually you get there, but initially it's just having that understanding and that empathy.
Exactly what you said. Like sometimes you just need to let it out, or someone needs to let it out, and they don't want anybody to fix it. As a very non-emotional, I'm actually very emotional. As an engineer, I just want to fix things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As a man.
No, it's a common gender stereotype for sure.
When thinking about this, I was thinking like, what is the best way to complain? How can we, if we're going to complain, if we're going to kvetch together, like let's, make a framework for the best way to do it. And part of that framework for me was, in the end, find a way to fix it.
Yeah.
But maybe actually, and I think this can be a collaborative effort of like finding the best way. Maybe it's actually not find a way to fix it, but either find a way to fix it or just realize that's how it's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
And you can still complain, I guess, but
I mean, it's part of if it's something that's bothering you that you need to release and it's generally unfixable, then it's a stage of acceptance, right? Like you're going through those stages of anger, frustration, of sadness, whatever it is, despair. And then eventually you with someone else are landing on acceptance. Okay, this is how it is. And I'm gonna, now that I have it out of my system, be able to move on more easily with it. But I know you have this idea about being proactive and constructive with complaints. And I think in general, that's the right attitude to have. But as we've kind of pointed out, sometimes that's not always the case. But one other aspect I wanted to understand from you, and as a prolific complainer myself, which I don't think you are, I'll share I feel like my key reasons for why I complain, but I want to hear from you why you think when you do complain, which isn't very often, is it always about trying to solve a problem? Like you point out something as an engineer, you say, oh, this is something wrong. This is a bug. I want to solve this. Or are there other reasons you think you complain at a deeper level?
You're asking me right now?
Yeah, I'm asking.
I think I've never thought about this, but I think when I complain, it's usually a very emotional time for me. It's where I have gotten to the point where I am seeing red. It's just like I'm just
Hulk mode.
I guess, yeah. Where it is completely the opposite of what I think good complaining would be.
Sure.
It's usually just like very, like I'm pissed off at something but I don't know. Is that actually what I do?
I'm trying to think of any time I've ever seen, like usually you're a pretty happy dude.
Yeah, usually actually it's either I'm at the brink or I'm just joking about it. Like I think for me, I find the funniest way to complain about something. That's my goal, I guess.
Humor is a very important tool with this, for sure. So I thought about it last night as I was getting ready for this, but to me, complaining is a form of like a defense mechanism. It's a way to set a lower bar, lower my expectations for whatever thing this is, so that it doesn't disappoint me. And so my instinct a lot of the times, even if generally I'm kind of happy with whatever it is, a restaurant, a trip, an experience, whatever, my instinct is to point out, oh, this could be better. This is kind of, I don't know about that. And to make little judgments, be a little picky. And therefore, if something doesn't turn out well in the end, I've like prepared myself emotionally for that.
You're almost explaining it to yourself, like you're explaining the the current state of the world and how it could be better, I guess, or something? Or?
Yeah. I'm explaining to myself. I'm kind of sharing with others just out of reflex, and also I'm getting to the root of it, which is it comes from having grown up in the instability. Mm. So I had parents that loved me, but we moved a ton. There was a lot of money issues. Never really having like a stable home. And feeling kind of insecure about that, I think led me to assume the worst was coming. And therefore, even when things were going well, I'd be like, well, I don't know, like what's around the corner? Like what's about to happen? Mm. And my mom also grew up in an unstable environment. And so she did that a lot. She would point out kind of the negatives a lot of times. And she would use humor to make it so it's not always like annoying and grating on people. But so that's where the instinct, I think, comes from. And something that I want to do going forward, and I think that's what you're trying to point towards, is like being more constructive, being a better complainer so that it doesn't just push people away. Because obviously you do that too much, it's going to wear people out. It's going to add a negative cloud to whatever it is, and people don't want to be around that very often. They'd rather be around a more optimistic person, obviously.
Well, I think maybe this is coming to the idea that there are different ways of different ways of complaining, different reasons to complain, different. It doesn't always have to be the same thing.
Sure.
Maybe there's a better way to complain in some situations, but in others, it's more. You mentioned it's more of like a defense mechanism, or the therapeutic.
Sure.
Maybe it's just like there are different categories of complaints, I guess, or different
motivations to why you're doing it.
Yeah, which throws a wrench in everything, because I was hoping that there would be just one type of complaining.
Humans aren't that simple, Tim.
What? I thought they were just little AIs that we programmed, and then they go on their little merry way. So I want to let you complain about something.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned before, I think I would like to set a framework for. I think in this case, it's one of the constructive complaints as opposed to the therapeutic or defensive complaints.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get to what is the best way to complain. How do we set us up for success in our complaints? And what I had written down was basically three things. One is to be specific about what you're complaining about. Mm-hmm. It can't be like, I hate this person and that's it. It has to be like, I don't like that they do a such and such thing, or in general, I don't like when people do such and such things, right? Or I don't like this particular thing about this particular city, or
sure.
I think if you're just generic, it doesn't get to the heart of your feelings. It's just a blob. The next thing is like, why is this thing this way? This thing I'm complaining about, how did it get that way? Like who even likes it that way? Right? Like, does someone, is it that way because someone likes it that way and they purposely did that? Or is it something they don't even know about? In which case this complaint will be very helpful to them because they don't even know. And if people already know about this problem, why is it still like this? So the third thing is, how can you actually change this thing? Mm-hmm. Will it change naturally? Will someone just change themselves, or will this thing just change themselves because it's obvious? Usually the answer is no, it's probably not obvious. Or do you have to do something yourself, or do you have to tell someone? And how, like, what's the sort of next steps for this complaint? Which makes it sound like non-personal, non-human in a way. Like it's like not, but we're talking about the we want to fix things type of complaint, not the so.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so be specific. Explain why it is the way it is, and then how can we fix it?
Yeah, and it's you should probably be able to explain why it is, but it's being able to understand why it's that way. Because a lot of times people they only have their own side of
their own perspective.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's really important to have the other perspective.
Okay. Do you want to provide the first example then?
The first complaint?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I think that's for you. Well, I could, but
yeah, I can do it. That's fine. I want to start small before I get into some of the bigger shit. So,